So one of the terms I like to use a lot of the time, and I think a lot of people on the internet use this term as well, is allonormativity. And I just wanted to touch on that term a little bit because I think it's a new phrase for a lot of people. And the starter for that, if you haven't learned, is the allo. It's allonormative. There are two parts of a whole. And I have a whole video actually about allosexuality, kind of, talking about sexual attraction. And so allosexual is kind of the flip side to asexual. Asexual is a lack of sexual attraction, little to no sexual attraction, whereas allosexual people, they do experience sexual attraction and they experience it fairly regularly, but allosexual is kind of the norm of society, and that is actually where allonormative comes in. And so if you've heard the term heteronormative, that is a similar situation. For the most part, our society as a whole is allonormative, heteronormative, some kind of combination of both of those things. Allonormative is the big umbrella because most people, a vast majority, like 99% of the population is allosexual. 99% of the world, as far as we know, is allosexual, which means we live in an allonormative society. Now, if you want to get really specific in that allonormativity, heteronormative, heterosexual, heteroromantic, whatever the case may be, that is kind of the majority of the majority is hetero. And so for the most part, people just say heteronormative because it is a heteronormative society, and most people are allosexuals. So to them, it doesn't make a difference. It's all the same thing, it's all heteronormative. However, we specifically live in an allonormative society, and I wanted to touch on that because a lot of the people who are allosexual don't realize just how allonormative it is. So if you've thought about a heteronormative society, basically that means a lot of media and capitalism and various other things are catered towards heterosexual couples. Now, again, broadening this term, I think most things on earth are geared towards allosexual people, allosexual things. And so that means most of the movies we see are about sex. They're often about romantic relationships, falling in love, whatever. Now, this isn't to say that I don't like allosexual people or I don't like allosexual relationships or allosexual stories. Like, I can appreciate a good romance. I really can. I think they're really cute and I love them. However, I think the problem comes with the normative part of it. When all of the stories are about sex or love or romance or allosexual relationships, it can be very difficult to exist in that society as an asexual person. It can be very difficult to live in a world where the norm is not you. And now this is an interesting concept because obviously this can apply to a lot of different things. You can think about, I'm white, so I experience like white normativity. Most of the world is catered towards white-skinned people, which is a problem. It can be expanded to other minorities too, even talking about like cisgender versus transgender. Most of society is geared towards cisgendered people. And it goes towards class, it's mostly geared towards middle to upper class people. It's geared towards the majority most of the time. And so it's important to understand and to recognize when that is happening so you can, one, call it out, and two, try and make policy changes to figure out how to be more inclusive of these different types of things. Talking specifically about allosexual and allonormative culture, I think it's really important, if you're an allosexual person, to understand this and to recognize this, because asexual people, we notice this. Like, I see it all the time. When I go to the movies, I kind of try and watch the trailers at the beginning and I keep track of the content of them. And so I do notice, one, there's a lot of men. There's not a lot of female-oriented movies. There's a lot of white movies. And there's a lot of allosexual movies. Even if you're watching just like a war movie, if you're watching a normal movie, you don't think it's about love. It's just about war. A lot of times they will stick in sex and or romance, even if it's not a main part of the story, even if it doesn't happen until the end, if it's a brief thread throughout the whole thing, 9 times out of 10, you will get kissing, you will get sex in some level. And that's really annoying. I don't know if you know how annoying it is until you realize it, but it's really frustrating and upsetting. Again, it's fine. I can deal with it. I've accepted it, but I think it's just an important thing to keep in mind that we do live in an allonormative society, and it's hard for asexual people to deal with that all the time. It's exhausting. It's really exhausting. And so if you haven't experienced it, I challenge you, even if you're just like watching commercials on TV or you're listening to music or you're on YouTube or whatever, like, see how much allonormative culture there is. Just check and see, you know, is there kissing? Is there romance? Is there sex? Even if there isn't like actual physical active sex, you know, maybe there's the mention of sex, maybe there's dirty jokes, maybe there's very revealing clothing that like leans towards like a sexual tone. Maybe it's just sexual tension, whatever it may be. It happens a lot. And it's really, really frustrating. And so the first step is noticing it, and the second step is taking action against it and pointing it out to people. And it helps if you're an allosexual person to point that out and recognize it and stand up for your asexual friends and loved ones and partners and whatever, because there's only so much we can do, you know?